What does complex, engaging and effective writing look like? And how can you move towards ensuring your own writing is complex, engaging and effective, to quote the phrase from that top band of the CIE English Language 0990 Paper 2 Descriptive Narrative Content and Structure Mark Scheme. Stay tuned, let's find out. This is Schofield on Shakespeare.
Here's how the top band of the CIE IGCSE English Language 0990 Paper 2 Content and Structure Mark Scheme looks. Put otherwise, perhaps, how do you write and structure your writing so that it is genuinely interesting? Perhaps the insertion of the Edexcel and AQA logos within the header to each slide was slightly gratuitous. Nonetheless, I think it is true to say that all GCSE or IGCSE English language boards are looking for very similar things for their descriptive narrative pieces. The keywords for AQA are compelling and convincing. Meanwhile, Edexcel use the noun subtlety and call for sophisticated and sustained use of tone, style and register. I'm currently reading Sinclair Lewis's wonderful novel Babbitt, after enjoying Main Street and Arrowsmith. Remember, yes, watching and completing the activities within this video is useful, but there's no substitute for devouring full novels. At the time of filming, so many of us have an unexpected amount of time on our hands. It really is an extraordinary opportunity for reading. Here are some other books that I either plan to read or have read in the last 12 months. This video includes an extract from Sinclair Lewis's Babbitt, which is complex, engaging and effective. We will read and enjoy this, analyse what makes it complex, engaging and effective before I give you some tips and tasks of your own. So let's enjoy. Babbitt is about to take a bath. Before breakfast, Babbitt always reverted to upstate village boyhood and shrank from the complex urban demands of shaving, bathing, deciding whether the current shirt was clean enough for another day. Whenever he stayed home in the evening, he went to bed early and thriftily got ahead in those dismal duties. It was his luxurious custom to shave while sitting snugly in a tub full of hot water. He may be viewed tonight as a plump, smooth, pink, baldish, podgy goodman, robbed of the importance of spectacles, squatting in breast-high water, scraping his lather-smeared cheeks with a safety razor like a tiny lawnmower, and with melancholy dignity clawing through the water to recover a slippery and active piece of soap. He was lulled to dreaming by the caressing warmth. The light fell on the inner surface of the tub in a pattern of delicate wrinkled lines, which slipped with a green sparkle over the curving porcelain as the clear water trembled. Babbitt lazily watched it, noted that along the silhouette of his legs against the radiance on the bottom of the tub, the shadows of the air bubbles clinging to the hairs were reproduced as strange jungle mosses. He patted the water, and the reflected light capsized and leapt and volleyed. He was content and childish. He played. He shaved a swath down the calf of one plump leg. Time for your first task. Reading on its own is not enough when it comes to developing a more complex, interesting style of your own. You need to be thinking about your writing, making notes, stealing ideas and techniques. So, toggling back to the previous screens, copy out 3 phrases you like and make brief notes on why you find these phrases interesting. Press pause now. The video will resume in 5 seconds. Here's my first choice. Even without reading the rest of the novel, it is already becoming clear that the narrator may have a different attitude towards Babbitt than he has of himself. The use of the adjectives complex and urban to reference simple, everyday domestic activities such as shaving and bathing creates a clearly ironic tone. Already, the reader is being encouraged to mock Babbitt as someone who may attribute his everyday actions, and by extension his life as a whole, as having disproportionate importance. If I was making notes on this quotation, I would have written something like what is shown on screen. Here's my second choice. I find the use of the adverb thriftily hilarious. This is a fairly old-fashioned adverb, which would never usually be used in the context of cunning night before bathing and shaving. As shown in the definition on screen, you would expect this adverb to be used in relation to saving money. The narrator is once again creating an ironic tone to poke gentle fun at Babbitt. Is this indeed a man who has far too high an opinion of himself and his everyday actions and decision-making processes? If I was making notes on this quotation, I would have written something like what is shown on screen. Another quotation I found interesting. There's so much to pick out here. Let's go step by step. First, there's the shift in tense. The rest of the extract, both before and after, uses the past tense. This sentence is alone in using the immediacy of the present tense. Why? What is the effect of this? Well, it encourages the reader to look directly and immediately at Babbitt, humiliatingly exposed in the bath. It sets him up as a spectacle to be viewed at, and, as later unflattering descriptions confirm, mocked. Once again, Lewis uses contrast or unexpected word combinations for comic effect. We previously saw thriftily being used in the context of decisions to bathe and shave. Now we have the archaic word goodman, with its connotations of authority and dignity, used in conjunction with utterly unflattering descriptions of unattractive, ordinary flesh. The effect once again is to deflate Babbitt's sense of self-majesty. What about this phrase? Rather than the neutrality of something like the spectacles were perched by the side of the bath, we have robbed of the importance of spectacles. The past participle robbed is again deliberately used disingenuously. Babbitt has not been robbed, but has merely chosen to take off his glasses, as the majority of us do when taking a bath. The effect of this phrase is therefore to highlight Babbitt's vulnerability. The implication is that he is someone who puts on a front, a facade, which is very different from his natural, insignificant self. What about this hilarious verb? The squatting position is possibly the most undignified of all potential human body positions, and to be viewed squatting is even more humiliating. The use of squatting rather than the more neutral sitting or even the more stately reclining highlights the value of a well-chosen verb within a sentence. Just this single verb on its own is far more effective and damning than longer equivalents. We're always told within descriptive writing to use similes, but how easy is it to come up with a genuinely interesting, fresh image? What I like about this simile is that it reinforces Babbitt's ordinariness by referencing an everyday garden appliance. Even more, the correct reproportioning adjective tiny once again sends a sharp pinprick through the balloon of Babbitt's self-importance. Like all of us, he is utterly insignificant within the overall scheme of things. So how would I have made some useful notes on this sentence to help inform my thinking for my own writing? See on screen now.
So what practical tips can we take from this discussion of Lewis's description of Babbitt in his bath? Could we create some kind of checklist to experiment with in our own writing in order to move towards complex, engaging, effective for CIE, compelling and convincing for AQA, or subtlety and sophistication for Edexcel?
Tip 1. Consider one shift in tense in your descriptive piece, e.g. a single paragraph in the present tense. Tip 2. Don't tell us that a particular character is despicable or ridiculously full of their own self-importance. Imply it, e.g. he shrank from the complex urban demands of shaving and bathing. Tip 3. Ensure that your simile is fresh and original. He scraped his cheeks with a safety razor like a tiny lawnmower. Press pause now to copy these tips down. Time for some of your own writing. Experiment and try the tips shown on screen. Press pause now. Here's my response. Responsibility and hard work never faze me, Derek confided for the first time in 18 hours. Never. Come and peek at this epitome of energetic endeavour in action. Every morning he would be as good as his word. Smoothing down his 5-button waistcoat, he would march to the front door and bring in the 2 glass bottles of milk deposited in the early morning by Mr. Wainwright. Following the successful completion of morning task 1, he would retreat to his library armchair for a thorough perusal of the morning's newspapers. At 11:30 on the dot, a glance at his gold pocket watch would signify the start of morning task 2. Moving determinedly towards the kitchen like a military general starting a campaign, his finger would press down a lever on the pre-filled kettle. This task accomplished, he returned with quiet satisfaction to his armchair, aware that in 10 minutes exactly he would be presented with a steaming cup of Earl Grey's finest. How have I attempted to engage the reader and beat the various descriptors within the top band of the different exam boards' mark schemes? Let's start with CIE. As you will know, the mark scheme for section 2 of paper 2 is split into 2 sections, out of 16 for content and structure and 24 for style and accuracy. I'm attempting to use a more interesting structure here by including some brief speech in the first paragraph, a shift to the present tense in the second paragraph, before returning to past tense in the third. Thus, I'm moving towards meeting the criteria of structure being secure, well balanced and carefully managed for deliberate effects. The criteria for AQA is virtually identical. It's just that the phrasing is slightly different. I would argue that my piece uses varied and inventive use of structural features. Unsurprisingly enough, accuracy is critical at this top level. And even amongst the more talented English students, I still see so many errors with speech marks punctuation. Here, speech marks are used accurately. The rules for speech marks are about to flash up on screen for those of you slightly unclear. Press pause to read this through and copy down notes as appropriate. Within the top band of the CIE's style and accuracy criteria, the requirement is that spelling, punctuation and grammar are almost always accurate. Similarly for AQA, they ask that a wide range of punctuation is used with a high level of accuracy. Edexcel punctuates writing with accuracy to aid emphasis and precision. Shall we also have a think about sentence structures? Again, it is so easy to get carried away with your ideas for your descriptive piece and your sense that you must include a simile, a metaphor, 5 senses, personification, etc., that you forget about the requirement for variation in sentence structures. As well as the one-word sentence for effect, never, Note that the 3 sentences all start with a different words: responsibility, never, and come. Thinking of your own writing, how many of your sentences unwittingly end up beginning with the, or his, or her? What about vocabulary? For CIE, this needs to be precise and well chosen. I've highlighted 3 words which I feel more obviously meet this criteria: phase, confided, and epitome. Neither word is particularly complex, but you may be able to glean within words like confide and epitome an insight into the narrator's perspective. An epitome is the highest example of something, and the subsequent paragraph's description of Derek's smug completion of tasks which require minimal effort retrospectively reveals that this word has been used sarcastically. Reading through the lines within this passage, it is clear that Derek is a supremely lazy individual who feels absurd pride in the very little that he does. However, this is implied rather than stated explicitly, hence beginning to meet the complex, engaging and effective criteria from content and structure. Let's continue to probe. Pomposity is implied through the use of the verb march. And the military imagery is continued through the use of the simile about the military general. I suggested that the best candidates really think about their use of imagery. Here there is comic contrast between the grandeur and importance of a military general about to start a battle and the tiny size of a finger doing something as trivial as putting the kettle on. The CIE mark scheme for content and structure requires many well-defined and developed ideas and images create a convincing overall picture with varieties of focus. This is what I am attempting to do through supplying small details. 5-button waistcoat, the name of the milkman, the fact that the kettle is pre-filled. Varieties of focus is seen in the contrast between the historic image of a general standing presumably on a huge battle plane and the movement of a single finger. Note also the over-the-top capitalisation of morning task 1. This makes Derek's task seem very important and significant, at least to him, whereas they are clearly utterly banal and not worth thinking about routines. The effect of this is to make Derek seem rather ridiculous. Note also the relative subtlety or understatement of the phrases shown on screen. Reading between the lines, Derek is so lazy that he doesn't even fill up the kettle himself. A less effective piece would have spelled this out more explicitly, e.g. his daughter Honoria would dutifully add fresh water to the kettle a few minutes earlier. Similarly, note the use of the passive tense in Derek being presented with his cup of tea. The use of another name would have drawn attention more explicitly to Derek's stunning paucity of action within the tea-making process, but writing is much more enjoyable when it is more suggestive, when we readers have the joy of reading between the lines. So, could this subtlety be one way of meeting CIE's requirement for complex, engaging and effective writing? Or AQA's compelling and convincing register? Or Edexcel's suggestion that writers should shape audience responses with subtlety, with sophisticated and sustained use of tone, style and register?
This has been a Schofield on Shakespeare production, encouraging you to think about producing more complex, engaging and effective writing for IGCSE or GCSE English Language. Many thanks for watching. Stay safe.